Hey everybody, I'm Joe DeGanzik and this is Smarter Home Life. This is our Q&A video for the smart home LED lighting and all that good stuff. I'm kind of just wrapping all that together now because we get fewer and fewer questions on LED lighting because I haven't done that many reviews because it has been kind of less of a thing than all the smart home or home automation stuff lately. So I take your questions obviously through email. I do scan through the comments on YouTube and I do get back to them, but YouTube with the amount of comments because of all the video views and everyone coming in to watch the videos, which thank you very much for watching them. Sometimes it's too much and the YouTube comment system for creators is not that great when you have to go back over the month and try to figure out the best ones. It's just a pain. But anyways, questions at smarthomelife.com gets right to me. I get back to you within a few days usually, and then the best, most interesting ones go on these shows. This is from all of October of 2017, and in fact, it's been a long time since I've actually been able to get this out on time. I'm doing this back to back and catching up from some previous ones, so this should be out on November 1st or November 2nd. A few questions about Philips Hue and some Smart Hub stuff with IFTTT and smart things, and then another one that'll be on talking about electrical stuff, neutral wiring and Z-Wave smart switches and dimmers. So from the first one from Darren Bloomer, thanks Darren for writing in, and hey there Joe, I have a lighting home automation software question. So again, kind of mix the best of both worlds here. I have a Hue 2.0, you know, the square Hue bridge for Philips Hue lighting, and the SmartThings hub, as well as the EZVIZ video surveillance system. I had not even heard of EZVIZ until I got the email, but looks to be a reasonable video I want to say video camera. It's a security system for in terms of cameras, and it's also smart home ready. I have IFTTT turn on the outside lights at sunrise, at sunset, and off at sunrise. So you can have that done. Let's see, and I'm assuming that these outside lights, and I assumed via email as well, that these were Philips Hue. Now you can do it through IFTTT. You can also do it directly through the Philips Hue app. And he also has SmartThings, so you could do it a number of ways. There's like multiple ways that you could do this. He's trying to figure out how to make the lights change from a low setting, like a nice dim, like maybe 20-30% at 2200K, and that's the color temperatures, you know, warm to cool white, warmer being lower numbers, kind of more like candlelight, higher numbers being close to daylight, more of a bluish tone. So he wants to change the lights from, you know, that low kind of warm setting to a higher, about 4400K, closer to a more pure white light when the camera system detects motion between sunset and sunrise. And then after the timeout, like a few minutes after the no motion is being detected, to return them back to that standard setting. Any advice would be appreciated. And this is something I try to choose some questions that are kind of applicable to everyone. And so here's the challenge with this. It sounds like a really simple thing to do, but it can be an issue. And what he's trying, of course, to do is use existing equipment, existing systems, and so forth. And I started to think about it and I said, okay, how can you do this? Because the camera system can interface through IFTTT. IFTTT, for those of you who don't know, is a service, it's web-based, that allows you to basically connect different things, different services, whether they're smart home products, services like texting, like you can say, you know, hey, if something is detected at home, send me a text message. Or if I turn on my Hue lights between these hours, send my brother an email. You know, just weird things like that. You can do all these cross connections. And IFTTT, as much of a pass I will give it, because I don't personally use it all that often. For some people, depending on what you need to do or what you want to do, it can be really helpful. It can almost act as I hate to say a smart home hub in the cloud, but it can act as a way to cross-connect different things and make things happen different based on triggers. Now, I don't own the EZVIZ camera system like he does, so I can't tell him, I wasn't able to tell him, and I can't tell you what the options are within IFTTT other than the pre-built little applets that they have saying, you know, if this happens, then do something else, or here's the various things that it can do. Generally, one would think, of course, if motion is detected, you can set it to be a trigger for something else to happen, like Philips Hue or SmartThings or whatnot. So you can play around with IFTTT and do a lot of interesting things. But in general, they don't publicize it that much. In general, it is a one at a time thing. Set up a trigger and then set up an action for it to happen. In this case, he wants, you know, the lights to change if motion is detected, and then once the motion is no longer detected, he wants the lights to go back to the way that they were. This is realistically, as simple as this sounds, with the existing equipment and systems that he has, this is actually hard to do. I know it sounds weird, and this is why we can't have nice things kind of phrase. This is where this comes in to say, why is it so difficult? Well, IFTTT, of course, it's one thing at a time. So it's going to trigger the lights to change based on motion, but there's nothing to say after a few minutes, change them back to where they were. And the same thing on SmartThings. SmartThings has all these weird sort of smart apps that you can use that Samsung and other manufacturers set up, but many of them don't have the ability to switch things back automatically, or even after a timeout to trigger something else. And with SmartThings, you always have to trigger something to trigger something else. Personally, I use SmartThings in a limited fashion because I just don't like the interface. I just don't think it's that great. Some people love it. I don't, but that's neither here nor there. So after thinking about it, kind of thinking out loud, and then writing him an email and saying, look, these are your options, I started to think, you know, the best way to do things sometimes is just to buy another device. And it happens to be, of course, Philips Hue does make a motion sensor, which would tie in directly with his Hue lights, which I'm making the assumption that the Hue lights are outside. The Philips Hue motion sensor has the ability to obviously trigger a scene, a predefined scene that you set up of certain lights at certain times, such as sunrise and sunset. The default behavior that you can set on the motion sensor is, you know, when something happens, change it to this scene, which would be that warm scene, the 4400K, the more bright white scene, probably bump those up a little bit in brightness. Then the default behavior is either do nothing or turn them off after the timeout is reached. Labs.meethue.com is kind of their beta testing area for new kind of ways of doing things with the Philips Hue products that they don't include in the built-in functionality. And there is one called No Motion, No Fuss, and it will literally do this reversion automatically. So it will basically let you set the end behavior to just go back to the way it was before motion was detected. So let me review this once again. If you get the motion sensor for Philips Hue, it will let you trigger something based on motion, so you know, change to a different lighting scene, and then a few minutes afterward it'll give you you'll have the options to either do nothing, leave it alone, turn the lights off, or revert them back to the way that they were before the motion was detected and before the lights were changed. And that is exactly what the easy solution would be for Darren. So Darren, I sent you an email recently on this, and I think this is the best solution. The Hue motion sensor is only $37, so it's relatively inexpensive, and without having to go through a bunch of steps to try to make this work with your existing equipment, even though it would seem like it should be easy, because all of this stuff is built into the app and built into the way the motion sensor works for Philips Hue, I think it's going to be an easier way to have it be set up. Now, the motion sensor does not really, if you tie it in directly into the Philips Hue bridge, it's only going to control Philips Hue stuff. With the new technology from HomeKit and Apple, you can have it control other HomeKit stuff, but it sounds like you're not in that world. That's totally okay. I think the motion sensor for the Philips Hue motion sensor is probably going to be the way to go for you. And if you follow the information that I gave you in the email and in these instructions, I think that's probably the way to go. That wraps it up. That's kind of a long answer, but I want to just kind of, this is the way to do stuff. So thanks, Darren, for your email. And let's move on to the next one before we get to our little break. From Laura, who I've worked with before on a consulting session, which I'll mention here in a little bit. Another question on Philips Hue. So thanks, Laura, for writing in, and she's also been one of our supporters on Patreon, so thank you for that. Hi, Joe. I was wondering if you could answer a question for me. I have an office set up with recessed ceiling Hue lights. I have the Hue motion sensor set up, and I like having it there. When I work in my office at night, it shuts off. It shuts off if I move out of range, which means, you know, you come into the room and if she's doing some work in the office, and if she leaves the office after a few minutes, it will simply turn the lights off automatically, which is kind of what you want to have happen. The challenge is, she said, I moved it right in front of me, but it still goes off because I move around a lot. It still triggers. I think she meant even though I move around a lot, because it kind of didn't make sense. I set up a dimmer switch as well, the wireless Hue little dimmer that you can get. But the motion sensor seems to take priority as the lights keep shutting off if I move it out of sensor view. Is there a way to have the dimmer switch take priority over the sensor when I want that behavior? Thank you, Laura. The quick answer to this is no. The problem is that Philips Hue doesn't have the advanced kind of if-then logic or if-then-else logic that you can program to make things happen. So this is what Laura's running into. She has a motion sensor, it turns the lights on when she comes into the office and turns them off automatically when she leaves. But the issue, of course, is when she's there, maybe typing, working, it doesn't really sense some of that minute motion, and she's moved it around, but every so often the lights just turn off automatically. She's got to wave her hands around and have them turn back on. It's kind of an annoying thing. There really isn't a way around this other than, like I just talked about, there are options that you can set for the end behavior in terms of the motion sensor will detect motion, turn the lights on. You have the option to either turn them off, you know, again, like I was talking about with the first question, set them back to the way they were, which would have been probably off, which doesn't help, or do nothing. But in Laura's case, you don't want it to do nothing, because then if she leaves the office, the lights will just stay on. And I thought about this, and I was emailing her back, and I thought, all right, there might be some advanced ways to do this if you had some advanced home automation. Like if no motion is detected from the sensor in the office for a while, and within a certain amount of time, that maybe there's a motion sensor that is sitting in the hallway that is tripped when she leaves the office, then go ahead and turn the lights off. And don't turn the lights off for any other case. But again, every case is a little bit different. That's why I find that I don't use motion sensors in this place. Granted, it's a very small place. I tried to come up with some use case for the for myself for the Philips Hue motion sensor last year, and I turned it into part of the giveaway. I just these type of things that are specific to, you know, home offices and so forth, they can be really tricky to get to work the way that you want them to. And I don't really have a great solution for Laura in terms of you want it to turn the lights on automatically, but you almost have to have a quick way of disabling that while you're there. This wouldn't happen within something like Philips Hue. It almost would be if you had another home automation platform that you could press a button to disable the functionality of that motion sensor for an hour or an hour and a half or something like that, that you're going to be there, and have it turn back on so that then after a certain period, you know, the motion sensor would start activating again and would simply automatically turn those lights off when it didn't sense motion, which, you know, maybe that you're only going to work in your office for an hour or so. I know I have, this isn't a motion sensor, but when I do these recordings, I have a kind of a timer, an automation that I've programmed so that the air conditioning system, which generates some background noise, the fridge, and even my automatic lighting scene that changes from daylight to nighttime lighting, that gets disabled as well. And it's on a timer so that in about an hour and a half, so that I don't accidentally leave the fridge turned off, in an hour and a half, all of that gets reverted and all that automation goes away. The fridge turns back on, the AC turns back on, and so forth. Usually I'm not doing recordings for longer than an hour and a half. And even when I'm doing these Q&As, which are longer episodes, I will take breaks if I'm doing them back-to-back and turn that automation off and then fire it up again. So kind of a weird thing. I don't have a great answer for you for LoRa when you're in only the Philips Hue ecosystem. If you want to jump into some more home automation, we can chat more offline about that, and I'm sure I'll be getting an email back from her in a few days. So that's the unfortunate answer. I don't really have a great solution for you on that one. So, but again, thank you for supporting on Patreon. It was great to work with you before doing the live consulting session, and that's Laura McGann. So thanks for writing in. Okay, so time for the little ad break, Patreon, and so forth and so on. Many people just skip past this. This has got some really good information in it, really exciting stuff that I want to tell you about. And so please don't skip it. It's really, really important. I'll make the Patreon piece kind of short, but Patreon is the crowdfunding platform that Smart Home Life uses, that I use to make the show happen. You can define whatever you feel that Smart Home Life is worth to you to support, whether it's $1 a month, $20 a month, $100 a month. We don't have anyone at $100 a month. People who have been on the Patreon train for a very long time. Linda and Jonathan, Adrian, Grayson, Robert, Douglas, Ralph, Richard, and people like Michael D, who have been a part of the Patreon community for a very long time. Everyone who's supporting the channel, supporting Smart Home Life in some way, even a very, very small way, you all make a difference. And especially at the holidays, I say thank you so much. All of that revenue goes in to doing real things. Not every company of like smart home products sends stuff to review for free. Many of the big companies, Amazon, Google, and so forth, Smart Home Life is just a blip to them. I many times have to buy this stuff, and that's things like smart plugs. I'm going to be talking about this. Holiday season is upon us. People are turning lights on and off. These are great ways to control those things. And I don't know, this is really indoor. This is an indoor device, but there are outdoor versions of this as well. The dedicated smart light that's HomeKit enabled. The first one that was really announced took them a long time to release it. This is from Sylvania. But many times it's easier to not be sort of encumbered by weird contracts and agreements, and just to be able to say, you know what? I'm going to review the product, and if it's a decent product, I'll tell you it's decent. If it's great, I'll tell you it's great. If I think it's important enough to review it and say that it sucks, I'll say that it sucks. So now I want to tell you about something. I talked about this during the summer and the late summer. There was the initial, which the sequence of events wasn't that great. There was the initial kind of like, oh my God, I have to move. And then that got delayed. Many of you probably have lost faith. You're saying, oh my God, you're crying wolf every couple months. It's not the case. I was told that I was going to have to move at the end of the summer. That got pushed back to basically the end of this year, early 2018. But over the summer, something else happened. It was a great thing to have happen, and I took a lot of thought and time to think about, do I actually do this? So over the summer, a company contacted me, and I get many of these emails every single day from people wanting me to promote their products. And the short story of it was, as I continued to email this smart home company and talk to them about their product, they seemed to want more of my advice on the product itself, and not necessarily just having me make some kind of video about it. The product wasn't actually out yet. So the short story is, I decided to do some consulting work for the company. And many of you will say, oh my goodness, you're a sellout, you're now working for someone else, and now we don't trust you because you can't maintain your objectivity. Well, I'm doing my best to maintain my objectivity, but yes, I am doing work for a smart home company out of China that's introducing a product to the US market. It went live on crowdfunding a couple days ago. I'm just going to give you the basics, and I'm putting it in the Q&A because the Q&As get a limited audience. This is not designed as a big promotional video, and the company did not ask me to make a video about it. They have their own They have their own marketing campaign and their own resources that is being used to launch the crowdfunding and to do all that work. I'm kind of a strategic consultant for them, so they have someone based in the US to help them understand the market and to make some adjustments to the product, which was largely complete before I actually started working for them. It's called the Linky Smart Home Hub. I'm going to be objective. I will show a little bit of excitement because, of course, I'm involved in it. It's a touchscreen based smart home hub. There are a few of these out there. Obviously, the best thing that comes to most people's minds with a touchscreen and an assistant on board is the Echo Show and the new Echo Spot. This one is Google Assistant based. I like that because personally I like Google Assistant. They chose it for many of the same reasons. They made those decisions before they reached out to me. So touchscreen, smart home hub, Zigbee, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, same protocols as in the Echo Plus, as it turns out. So no Z-Wave, that will upset some people. It's a good product from a team of people who've been working on it for a couple years. And I wouldn't have even joined on if I didn't feel that it was a good group of people who are really trying to make something that's genuine and that's worthwhile. So it also does a lot of the processing on board. If you're just controlling a bunch of stuff locally and your internet goes out, the device is not going to stop working. It really does all of its work either in the network or on the device itself through all those protocols. You can get one for the desktop that's USB powered. You can get one for the wall, replaces a light switch, and you can still control what was connected to the switch through the screen. And so the synchronization between those devices, between the Linky hubs, happens in your local network as well. The only time it goes out to the net is things like Nest and other cloud-based services like IFTTT. It's got a great UI that's unique and different. It will have some power user features for automations and scheduling and triggers and conditions, but it's a simple UI. It's a new category of device, so that's something that most people think of a smart home hub as something that you stick on a shelf, stick it somewhere. Some people want a touchscreen, some people don't. Anyways, lynky.com will send you over to the crowdfunding campaign. That's the link that everyone else gets. I get no preferential treatment. I'm not making any commissions or affiliate sales on this stuff. So it's an interesting product. I hope that it'll do well, and I'm just doing some consulting work. Other than that, I have no stake in the company, and I just wanted to get that out there. So if you want to treat this as some kind of like promotion, great, but I'm just doing it to say, hey, here it is. Here's what I've been doing, and this is the reason why that there are fewer videos coming out and there's fewer pieces of content, because good content takes a long time to do. These Q&A videos don't take that much time, but the product reviews, the how-to stuff, all of that has to be planned and thought of and designed and created, and I have to stand in front of a camera and say something that's meaningful and not try to just edit it, later and talk at a million miles an hour. Thanks to the Smarter Home community, the Smarter Home Life community that has stuck with me for several years and watched the videos and thumbs up to them and commented and really helped to make this channel into what it has become today. You're the reason why that the company, the Linky, discovered me in the first place from the videos and said, hey, ultimately we want you to be a consultant for us. So now I get to say that, yeah, everything I do for a living is around the smart home and the IoT. Okay, so the last question comes in from Johnny G. Kind of sounds like a cool name, Johnny G. Hi there, thanks for looking at my question and possibly answering it. My old house doesn't have the neutral cabling and the smarts, and my smarts needs one. I think he's coming in from a different language. I face the ugly reality, that's an interesting way to put it, of running a neutral wire, which is going to be a problem, or not doing it at all. Also, are LED lights compatible with something like a smart switch without a neutral cable? Does a solution exist for this? Well, Johnny G, thank you for emailing in. This is a common question I get as well. I wanted to include it on the show. Every couple months, some of the common questions come up, and I like to cover them kind of again, because not everyone goes back to all the old episodes, so it's kind of good to put these in there. So I'm going to say this blanket statement in general, in air quotes here. In general, There are smart switches, like wall switches, smart switches and smart dimmers that are available that do not require a neutral wire. They generally have either less functionality, or specifically for lighting, they do not work with LED lighting. Because the old days, and I mean this is like the old days, the X10 days, there were, and this still exists even in the Insteon world, there were smart dimmers that you could get that didn't require a neutral wire. They did some tricks to kind of maintain a tiny little amount of electricity that would travel through that smart dimmer or smart switch, and usually the dimmer, because it would bring that light all the way down super low, but leave a little bit of power running through the circuit to power the electronics package to listen for commands. And today, with the smart switches that have Wi-Fi, or they're Bluetooth, or Zigbee, Z-Wave, Insteon, you name it, Clear Connect from Lutron, again, these devices have to have some amount of power running all the time so they can detect commands coming in and traffic on the network. Without it, it just doesn't happen. But so the reason is you've got, say, CFL or LED lighting, which requires special types of dimmers, special, not really for on-off, but definitely for dimming. You've got to have some kind of tiny amount of circuit running, a tiny amount of power running through it. And especially with LED and CFL, if you run it really low, it still might be turned on, it might flicker, there might be a problem with it. So they can't play that trick. So generally what happens is the dimmer functionality on some of these devices, and I had replied back to him with a link of a product that may or may not suit his needs. So let's see, this was GE/Jasco. Jasco and GE sometimes work together on these products. It was a Z-Wave dimmer that didn't require a neutral wire. However, it only worked with incandescent or halogen lighting. And since we kind of go back to that era, it also has a minimum load requirement, usually of at least 40 watts, sometimes 60 watts, sometimes more. And when you think about LED lighting these days, which many of the 60-watt equivalent bulbs and even the 40-watt equivalent bulbs taking only 6.5, 7, 8, or 9 watts of power, that's certainly not going to work, which again is why another reason why the LED stuff is incompatible. So you kind of face this problem in an old home. This is where, and I made this recommendation to him, this is where you can fix this problem with smart lighting. And this is why smart lighting has boomed over the past couple of years. Again, it's simple, especially for something like a LifeX product or any other product that doesn't require a starter kit or a bridge. Change out your light bulb, screw the new one in, connect it to Wi-Fi, and you're done. Smart lighting could be the way to go for Johnny G, and it could be the way to go for you if you have an older home. Now, granted, when we're sitting here October, November 2017, companies like Philips Hue have a wide variety of products now from A to Z in terms of your standard A-shaped bulbs to GU10 MR16s for your track lighting and the little spotlights and everything in between. So you're not looking at, can I put a smart light in if I have a specific fixture or a chandelier or something that I need to equip. But smart lighting can be more costly in a normal retrofit. If you're looking at having to rewire your home to add neutral wiring, smart lighting is going to cost a lot less because, as we all know, hiring an electrician by the hour and doing a lot of work, it's going to cost you some big bucks. So I think, and I made the recommendation to him to take a look at some certain new smart lighting products. Again, LifeX just introduced the LifeX Mini. They're a little bit less bright, smaller package. Now it works with all 3 voice assistants, all 3 platforms, Lady A, Alexa, Google Assistant, and of course HomeKit in Lady Siri. So that's really my solution. It's tough to get that non-neutral wire functionality to work because you'll wind up with less functionality, or it won't work with LEDs or something like that. That is the answer from Johnny G's question. I kind of like saying that. He's probably like, what are you talking about? But anyways, thanks to everyone for your questions. Of course, questions at smarterhomelife.com is the best way to get a hold of me, because the comment system on YouTube is really weird. Again, it's the holidays. You may have some additional questions, maybe gift guide stuff. I'm gonna have a gift guide for the smart home coming up in the next few weeks before Black Friday and Thanksgiving, at least here in the U.S. Not everyone celebrates that around the world. I know the audience is international, but you may just need some additional help and advice, and it might be easier for just getting my time. I do offer a personal consulting service over video like Skype and FaceTime and so forth. Send me an email at questions@smarterhomelife.com. It's a very reasonably priced, I think it's $50 an hour for the Smarter Home Life faithful here on YouTube. So get me on that, and I'm happy to do that. I've done a number of consulting sessions with many of you, and it's enjoyable for me to get to know you a little bit more. You can kind of interact with me directly, get your questions answered exactly. And as we get into the holiday season, I can say, happy holidays. Make your home a little bit smarter every single day, and especially for the holidays. Have fun with all the smart lighting stuff that's out there. There are a lot of ways to make it interesting and cool. And you know, if you come up with some really cool holiday lights or some kind, you know, take a video, take a photo, send me it, and we'll feature it on an upcoming Q&A. I'm Joe DeGanzik for Smarter Home Life. See you next time.